Hey everyone, this is Marjory Wildcraft, and I am here in Buell, Idaho, which at the home, I'm getting to actually stay at Patrick's home. My daughter and I are here. Patrick is Dr. Patrick Jones. Let's all get official here, doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's a naturopath.
I got a doctor's shirt and everything. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and it's even got like blood specks on it and stuff, right? You know, he's an herbalist, a naturopath, and a veterinarian. So the thing I love about Doc Jones is he gets to see all kind of stuff that your average herbalist isn't going to see because it comes in the door of his clinic. And believe me, we've been here a couple of days and we've been seeing it come in the clinic. It's really amazing. Doc, what is the difference for, like, and you use a lot of herbs in your practice.
Oh, sure.
And, you know, what is the difference between treating dogs and cats with herbs versus treating with humans with herbs? Do you use the same herbs kind of the same way, or do you have like a whole different pharmacopoeia for dogs? Like,
right.
Oh no, we're going to use, you know what?
Yeah, don't use that one.
Don't use that one.
You know, for the most part, veterinary herbalism is derived from human herbalism, and so we use a lot of the same plants. There's a few plants that you need to be a little careful with. There's some plants that are very toxic to dogs. Grapes, for example.
Grapes?
Yeah.
Really?
Grapes, because a dog's liver is different. They have different enzymes, and they turn things into weird stuff that'll kill them. You know, it's not the grape that kills them. It's one of the metabolites. And so, you know, grapes and raisins and xylitol, the sweetener, is very toxic. Garlic in high doses can be a problem with dogs. Can cause some bone marrow suppression and anemia. Hops can be a little toxic. Onions. But, you know...
Dogs aren't going to eat that anyway.
Yeah, they're not. But I do use them medicinally. And I use all of those medicinally in dogs. I'm just careful with them.
Okay.
You know, and so that's sort of where it is. But we use... You know, there's very few dogs leave the practice that don't have a little jar of green stuff to go home with. And people often ask, well, how do you get the herbs into the dog?
Yeah, that's
and how do you dose it? You know, how much do you give a dog? So.
And I have a challenge question for you after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the most part, for the most part, with dogs, I'm using just dry powdered herbs, and I'm just mixing them with the dog food. And
I've noticed you have a lot of powdered, and that's one of the reasons you like powdered stuff. Is it's easier to get into the dog food.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
And dogs don't really taste anything; they sort of just inhale.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, we'll mix it with a little canned food or something initially, or put a little water with the food initially. But for the most part, most dogs don't care, you know. Occasionally you'll get a little foofy dog that says, I don't think that's food, you know, and they're getting a tincture. Here, you think that's food, you know? We're getting it into you one way or the other. And sometimes if a dog's not eating, I'll just mix the powdered herbs with some water and syringe it in to their mouth, you know. We had a dog like that here in the clinic, a dog that was in liver failure yesterday who's doing great today because we've been pumping herbs into her for 3 days.
We're going to talk about that on the next video.
Yeah, she didn't, she is not eating, and so she's getting them in a little water, the powdered herbs.
Nice.
But so that's the best way to get them into dogs.
And now the bonus question.
Yes. How
do you get them into cats? Because cats don't just eat their food without, you know, like thoroughly examining it.
Well, you know, a lot of people don't realize that a cat's nose is better than a dog's nose. They can really smell. And they're completely scent driven for feeding. If they can't smell the food, it's not food. In fact, they did a study years ago. You know, some people get the chronic sinus infections and they go in and ream out their sinuses, you know, surgically and open stuff up. But anyway, and that is not without consequence, by the way. We've had a few cases of that with people that have very odd things going on in their heads after that surgery. But anyway, they did that to cats because cats get chronic sinusitis and it's a big deal. They thought, oh, well, let's try it on the kitties, you know. And they did a few of these cats in this study, and every one of those cats starved to death.
Really?
Because they couldn't smell, and it wasn't food.
If they can't,
if they can't smell it, their brain doesn't click that it's food.
Wow.
And so if you put herbs in cat food, they go, yeah, that is not food, you know?
Yeah.
And they won't eat it. A lot of times. Some herbs, you know, it depends on the herb. You know, some herbs have a very strong flavor profile and a lot of presence.
Of course, catnip.
You know,
you can put catnip in there.
Yeah, they'll eat that. They'll roll in it. But Yeah, some herbs you can get away with it and some you can't. If you use a really stinky cat food, fishy, you know, you can get away with it sometimes, depending on the plant. But, you know, as often as not, you're doing something, you know, a powdered herb in water, which they'll let you do twice, you know.
Yeah. You have that famous saying of like, get your
affairs in order. That's right. Call your mother. You know.
I'm gonna medicate the cat.
I'm going into the cat room, girls. If I'm not back in a half hour, send help. Call the EMTs. But you know, I use tinctures in cats a lot.
And thick gloves.
And thick gloves.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of asthmatic cats, and I use lobelia on them, and they do great. Mm-hmm. You know, versus giving them high dose corticosteroids.
You're just shoving that down the throat before they can do anything about it.
And the trick is, so the dose of a tincture of lobelia for a cat is going to be like 0.2 of a cc, just a little drip of it.
Bit, yeah.
And if you get it way in the back of their throat, you win, and it'll go down.
You win.
If you don't, they'll foam at the mouth for like 10 minutes, and it's this thick shaving cream muffle, and they make these horrible noises and glare at you the whole time, you know. And it doesn't hurt them, but they take it personally, you know.
Yeah.
So you get to do that once. But we have a intensive training with the owners. You got to get all the way in there behind the hump of the back of the tongue, and you win. Otherwise,
you're gonna get in there.
You're not gonna have any fun doing this.
Yeah.
But we dose dogs. Typically, dosing a dog of an herb. And usually it's a formula with 2 or 3 or 4 herbs in it. And they're usually going to get, for a Labrador retriever sized dog, they're going to get around a teaspoon of that twice a day. That's going to be typical dosing for a dog. And then you just divide by how many Labrador retrievers is this. You know, so if it's a St. Bernard, that's 2 Labrador retrievers. If it's a half a Labrador retriever or a quarter of a Labrador retriever, that's how you dose them. So,
got it.
You know, little Chihuahuas are getting 1/8 of a teaspoon, and you know, Border Collies are getting 1/2 teaspoon, you know. So that's kind of how we do that very scientifically, you know. They do all right. The margins of safety on almost all the herbs we were using are very wide, you know, and that's true for the human herbs too. There's not very many herbs in common usage that'll hurt you if you're not crazy.
Nature is much more relaxed.
Yeah, she's a good sport.
Really, really.
Yeah.
I feel that computers are like Old Testament gods. If you're off one thing, you know, one little period or something, like you're out, right? You know?
You're out.
And we're used to that kind of harshness with the world, but nature's much more like, you know, 1/2 teaspoon of tea. It's okay, you know, whatever.
And actually, there's only, I'll tell you, on the computer, I finally figured computers out. There's Macs and there's PCs, right? And all of the computers think that humans are idiots. But there's 2 mindsets there. The PC says, you're not smart enough to make me do that. And the Mac says, you're an idiot, let me do that for you. And I'm on that boat, you know. You couldn't possibly figure out how to make that happen. I'll do that for you.
Yeah, they're getting smarter.
That's right.
That's actually a good trend, I think.
So pick your poison. You're going to be humiliated either way.
To go back to the original point, though, so if you're already learning to work with herbs and you're learning, you know, different things that work for you, and so you can actually apply that to your pets and just use that dosing of what percentage of a Labrador Retriever.
Right.
And
almost without exception.
And be careful with your cats, but really, and then you had a few exceptions there, but you know, really, so basically everything that you learn as an herbalist for humanity, then you can apply to your animals.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
And to your horses.
Except for your orangutans.
Right.
Yeah, not the orangutans.
And I'll tell you a secret about horses that's interesting, is that horses per pound require much lower doses of herbs than dogs and humans. So why is that?
They'd spend a lot more time digesting things.
Yeah, well,
they're herbivores.
Right. It's because they're eating what they're supposed to eat. Because horses are still eating, for the most part, what they were made to eat, you know, and so we're not overcoming all the garbage in the body. You know, that's my theory anyway. Because you can give a horse, you know, I would dose a horse the same way I'd dose a St. Bernard.
How many stomachs does a horse have?
They just have the one.
They just have one. Yeah. It's not like a cow has 4.
You know, horses are actually. So there's 2 ways to be a herbivore. If we're going to get into the herbivore anatomy. There's 2 ways to digest cellulose, which we can't digest, right?
I've noticed that.
The only way you can digest that is to have the enzyme cellulase, and mammals don't make it. So it's got to be the bacteria and the protozoan and all those other little guys that are living in our guts. And so there's 2 ways to have that happen if you're a herbivore. One is to have lots and lots of stomachs like a cow, where they've got a rumen and, it's basically just a big 30-gallon fermentation vat. And then they're digesting the byproducts of that pre-digestion by the bacteria. The other way is to be what they call a cecal digester, where you have those bugs in your cecum, which is our appendix. We're not using it for that anymore, but that's the organ. And horses and rabbits and kangaroos, oddly enough, are cecal digesters. So they're doing that bacterial fermentation and breakdown of the cellulose in their cecum. But the bad news is that there's very limited nutrient absorption from there on. See? And so a lot of those guys have to recycle.
Yes.
And that's why the rabbits have to have access to the pellets to eat, or they'll starve. They'll be nutrient deprived because they're getting the nutrients out of the plants on the second time around.
What is the name of that? It's something phage. When they eat their own.
Coprophagy.
Coprophagy.
Yes.
Yeah. When they eat their own.
Or poop eating, we call it.
Poop eating. There's a special form of poop that rabbits have that they eat, which helps inoculate everything.
And horses will do a little of that. All those cecal guys will do a little bit of that.
I didn't know horses would do that.
And this is why we've given up on the appendix. That's the real reason.
We don't want to.
Forget it.
We don't want to eat poop.
We'll eat the rabbits.
I think we have deviated far enough right now. Come back for the continuation of this video. This is Marjory Wildcraft hanging out with Dr. Patrick Jones at his place in Buell, Idaho. Come join us for another video.
The Grow Network is a movement of people who are stopping the destruction of the earth via homegrown food. Learn to make your own medicine with plants you find in your yard. Get started at www.makeyourownmedicine.com.